and welcome back to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty, and this is part two of Taking Risks episode. So, part one was released a couple days ago, and that was a separate interview. This is going to be a different interview with someone else, and it's on the same topic of taking risks, and I think you'll see how different it can be. I mean, this very same topic. There are a few things that I think I need to correct. I watched another episode of Lore last night or the night before last, and I realized that I said that it was short, like between 30 and 40 minutes. I was completely wrong. They're on the higher end of 38 minutes to 48 minutes, so it's not going to be a quick watch. So that was something that I mistakenly said. I doubt anyone really even cares, but it's a good show nonetheless. Definitely another heavy episode that was on there, and it's unfortunate. I think there are like 6 episodes that are available on there, but it's neither here nor there. Another thing too, I was speaking about the post about the man that dressed wore leggings and stuff like that, trying to pretend to be a woman that was walking through the woods, trying to lure out this guy. And I was reading a post on Twitter recently, and it was about how women don't want to be referred to as females, as females, yeah. And I was really wondering about that because I never really I guess I've never referred to a woman as a female like necessarily, except if I was speaking about like male female and like sex in that way. But I guess I never really thought about it. But then there was this article that someone posted about why women don't want to be referred to as females, and I definitely get that perspective, and I get that idea. And I guess it just kind of blew my mind because that's just like another thing. That's why I also love when people speak to me about these topics and things like that, because I get another perspective on different things. And so, I mean, I guess I have to apologize for that because I did think I did describe him as dressing like a female. And I think that was something that was, I guess now that I'm seeing that article and after I read that and that's in my awareness, it's something that I guess I do need to apologize for if anyone did take offense to that. I guess like my entire idea of male female, like I guess as I've kind of grown and developed more into like different understandings within myself, I've always taken male and female to kind of be a derivative of masculine and feminine energy, and not necessarily males only embody masculine energy and females only embody feminine energy. I think that masculine and feminine energy is like embodied within both male and female, and I think that it's kind of men and women. I look at that. So I said okay. So I'm probably gonna have to cut that out or something. But I've always taken it as like masculine and feminine energies and that kind of way. But I definitely do see the different perspective, and I guess like that is a different thing on its own. Masculine and feminine energies within the human body, and within the human mind and our conception of all of that stuff. But again, that's another topic on itself. But that was just something that I guess I wanted to share because I think that maybe most people, I would like to think most people don't use it in that way, as a kind of demeaning term, towards women. But I do see, like, as I've read that thread, I saw like many contexts that people use examples as that were very valid reasons to have that word, like have that be something that is more demeaning. So women prefer to be called women. I think most people do call women women or ladies or anything in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting article. I'm sure if you read, like, Google it, you can find that article just about why women don't want to be referred to as females. So interesting. It was an interesting read, and it was definitely eye opening on my end because being a man, I wouldn't see that. I didn't see that perspective. So, um, so the interview of the second part was done with a good friend of mine. We also went to the same undergrad together. She is currently working as a biology teacher, and I think that as you reflect on the last episode, if you listened to the last episode, if you didn't, check it out. If you don't want to, then that's fine. These 2 episodes don't necessarily coincide with one another in the sense that you have to listen to one in order to get the other one, but there are just a lot of similarities with that, and also very very many very many. There are also differences within the same topic of taking risks, and I think that that's something that just should just be highlighted, because as we think about it, as we kind of move towards this idea of taking risks within our own lives, we have to realize that it means something different for us, and we have to value that. We have to value what it means to take a risk for us, and move in that way that's in accordance of what that means to take a risk. So this is the interview with Sheldon. Here it is. So I have conversations with people a lot of times, and I'll ask them a question, and it's really crazy how that question will be answered differently or even read differently from one person to another, even if they have similar backgrounds, similar kind of life experiences. It really comes down to the person and each individual experience that we have, and that really defines like the things that are meaningful for us in life, the things that we kind of perceive and the things that we take in, and how we take those things in. So with this idea of taking risks and how different that can mean for every person, like what does that mean for you in the terms of taking risks?
When you take a risk, for me, it's just simply when you take some kind of step outside of your personal comfort zone. However big that step may be, if you go outside your personal comfort zone, I feel like that is when you are taking a risk, doing something that makes you uncomfortable.
Hmm. So
And
mainly kind of stepping outside of that place where you find comfort and security and knowledge in your surrounding. Basically, when you step outside of that, you're taking a risk from what you
like
feel.
stepping outside what you're used to doing, like your normal routine, your normal activities, instead you decide to try something different.
Hmm.
That's taking a risk. It might be something you've never tried before, or just trying to switch up your routine, or I don't know, better yourself in some way.
So even just like, I guess, just moving in a different way, sounds like that's kind of how you would define taking risks.
Moving in different ways.
Yeah, like like moving in a way that like maybe isn't how you would normally move. Like moving towards learning something more, or going into a new occupation, or basically like you were saying, kind of going outside of your comfort zone in this way.
Yeah. There are different types of risks you can take. Like some might come after personal reflection, or some might come with no thought at all. And of course, there's different, well, I guess I just said there's different types of risks, but some might pose threats to others, which might not be a great risk to take, and other risks could benefit people, which is probably a good risk to take, or could benefit yourself. So you gotta, well, hopefully people would like weigh the outcome a little bit. But I think generally it is good to take a risk.
Mhm. So I guess like with taking risks and it being so much something that may be more calculated, or something that should be a little more calculated depending on who it's affecting, or who it's influencing. I mean, like you said, like there are different risks, and there are the risks that we can take for ourselves where it's only going to impact ourselves and how we live and move. But there are also these other risks that can involve family, involve friends, involve these people that we really care about, and it seems like those are ones that we obviously have to take more consideration over as we take those risks. But I mean, do you feel like there that you would be where you are now without taking some of those risks, without moving in those ways where, maybe it did influence other people outside of you, but you had to do it for yourself? Or like where do you think you'd be without taking risks today?
I don't think I'd be anywhere, right? I think people have to take risks in some shape or form every day, whether or not they're conscious of it. But you definitely, like I know I wouldn't be who I am today without risks. And even knowing that, some of the risks I've taken might have impacted others, most of the time it's been good for me. Because you're right, sometimes you do have to be a little selfish and take a risk for the benefit of yourself, even if, your family might not be happy about it. But also when you take risks, I feel like stepping outside of your comfort zone allows for growth, allows you to evolve as an individual. and become better than you were before, because when you take a risk, you inevitably learn something, right? You're trying something new. You're doing something you don't normally do. So there's, with that newness, you're learning something, and
Mhm.
by learning, you're growing.
So, I mean, I think that's a really amazing point in like this idea that these things that we do to put ourselves on a limb, to kind of put ourselves outside of our comfort zone in this kind of unknown place, it offers a lot of space for growth and understanding and within ourselves. And
Exactly.
I guess that kind of like brings me to this question, like if we were able to kind of move in a way where we could continue to get the things we want but still, kind of have no risks, like we don't have to calculate these decisions, we don't have to worry about the outcome. Would you feel as though that would be something that's beneficial for our livelihood and like the way that we grow as people?
Well, I feel like it can, but it also like sometimes might not be a great thing, because I feel like if someone doesn't want to take risks or gets tired of taking risks and they just end up being okay with what's around them and the way things are, then they're just settling a little bit. They're just kind of rolling over and accepting it, being like, okay, this is what it is, this is how it's going to be, and that's that. But I feel like when you take risks, you can learn that your life can be so much better than what it was if you want it to be. Like, unless you are exactly where, you've reached all your goals and you're happy.
You've attained everything you've ever wanted.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever been capable of that. So I feel like that's why there will always be risks to take. And think about it, even if you've obtained everything you wanted, like, wouldn't that be boring eventually? Because you're like, all right, well, I have everything, what's left?
Yeah.
And I feel like you'd have to take risks to figure that out. So I don't know. Taking risks is definitely something that's scary.
Hmm.
It's not always fun. It's not always easy, but I feel like it's necessary, and I feel like it's important, and I feel like it's a good thing for you to do. Like, growing up, I was kind of pushed out of my comfort zone a lot. My mom really tried to help me out and, send me off places or have me handle situations on my own and take those risks and learn from them. And, I realized I can be independent. I can do things that I thought were scary. I can stand up for people. I don't know, all these different things
Hmm.
have come from taking risks, and I feel like I've learned a lot and become better for it.
I mean, it sounds like, I mean, just like going, taking risks, it goes into a lot more than just the opportunities that we have outside or the opportunities that we can experience in our like daily lives, but like more something that we can actually experience within ourselves and grow from, like actually learn more about the strengths that we have and the abilities that we have to move forward. And maybe we wouldn't have felt that way if we didn't take those risks.
Exactly, and I feel like there's different levels of risks. Like, you have personal risks that you can take. You have risks that you might be able to take with your friends in a relationship, even like with a lover or someone in your family. Or you can take a risk in your community, trying to make a change within your community. I mean, if it could go even beyond that, like a global risk that you're taking. I'm not sure, like trying to help the globe in some way or start a movement, just collectively taking a risk. So I feel like there's definitely different levels, and depending on the level, you know, I guess depending on the level, there's different levels of outcomes as well, right?
Hmm.
So I feel like it just kind of all goes back to this one phrase that they like, I think it was our senior year of high school, that they really drilled into our heads, but it stuck with me, and it stuck with me ever since, and I really try to like live my life by it. But like, you need to be the change you want to see in the
Hmm.
world. And that was like our high school senior year theme, I think, or something like that. But they're all about it, and it really hit home for me. And you have to be the change you want to see within yourself, like within your relationships, within your family, within your community, within the world, like, and that comes with taking risks. You can't be the change you want to see if you're not willing to take risks.
I completely agree, and I think that's a really amazing point. And I do remember that slogan as well. And yeah, I believe it was in high school. Be the change you want to see, and I've seen it in posters, and it is something that kind of hits in a deeper place because it's like we so often want to see different things change, whether it's in our own lives or in like the community at large or the world at large, and we find ourselves kind of feeling kind of succumb or overwhelmed by the intimidation of it, like the risk that would take kind of putting yourself out there. And I think it does create so much empowerment to kind of hear that, be the change you want to see, and start kind of living in those shoes and taking those small steps and moving slowly outside of your comfort zone to get to that place. And I think even just like that intimidation that sometimes can be felt is the idea of like, okay, this is risk, like I'm feeling
Yeah.
this because this is something that is pushing me outside of that comfort that I have. And, am I going to run away from it, or am I going to move towards it and see what I learn from it?
Yeah, we as humans inherently hate change, right? We
Yeah.
like habits. We are habitual animals.
Mm.
And change is risky. Like, it could put us in danger, but it is so important to take those risks on all those different levels because you really need, like I was saying earlier, to be the change you want to see in the world. And there was also, I was I was walking around at a convention one time. It was in DC, and this guy stopped me on the side, and he was like, "Hey, you really need to take this bumper sticker and check this thing out." And then just like walked away. But it was this bumper sticker, and what it said in big letters is "Stop bitching and start a revolution." And then there was like a little URL or whatever. And I never visited the website, but for some reason that, just like be the change you want to see in the world, that
Mhm.
phrase, "Stop bitching and start a revolution," stuck with me because you, if you're going to complain about something and not do anything about it, you're just annoying. All right? You need to stop bitching and start a revolution, as in start changing what you are upset about.
Mhm.
Stop just talking about it and do something about it. And that comes with a lot of risk. I don't know how we got here to me talking about this bumper sticker, but I don't know. I think taking risks is so important, even if you have to be selfish when you take a risk.
I think that is something that's so critical too, is like that idea of when does it become something that you're doing for yourself? And I think that that's kind of how we should always make these decisions, where we kind of put ourselves into consideration, but also if we are interacting with other people, then like obviously put them into consideration as far as just is are my actions going to harm them? Are they going to, you know, put them in a way where it's like I'm doing something wrong to them in some kind of way from this action? And obviously that has to be considered, but I think a lot of times it's kind of the opposite, where we aren't sure about how other people feel, and then we kind of become reclused in our own space because we're afraid to take those risks because we're afraid of disappointing the people around us. But it's kind of like when do we have to start realizing that it's like something that we're doing for ourselves, and that risk is necessary for our own growth.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes like I don't know if we're talking about like a personal relationship or something and taking a risk like removing yourself from that relationship because it would be better for you. Like that individual might be hurt, they might be sad,
Yeah.
but despite that, I feel like it was still a good decision to make because it might not have been, if it's not good for both, then it's just not good, right?
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I'm glad you brought that up because I love like this is why I love kind of having someone else on the show as well, because it kind of gets to those kind of caveats in which that maybe I can't even fully explain, or that I kind of miss over, and that's a very good point. It's like especially in those relationships where it how can it be successful? How can you move together, even move together, taking risks together, if you within your own partnership are realizing that this isn't exactly what I want, and am I too afraid to leave, or am I kind of
You,
staying
you
here because of some other reason? I don't know.
you can't focus on growth. You can't focus on taking risks if you're stuck on something like that. it's like an inhibitor. It won't allow you to flourish in your any kind of relationship, be it romantic, familial, or a friendship relationship.
Mhm. So, I mean, you mentioned a few times that you've kind of taken risks or realized the potentials that risk has offered you for giving you better self-understanding, giving you better direction in like what you feel like you want for yourself. So, if you, I mean, like, do you have any experiences like of taking a risk that kind of stand out for you that you'd like to share?
I think the biggest one that stands out for me and the one that was most profound in my life thus far would be when I went to China for so long by
Mm.
myself. Because I'm claustrophobic, I'm afraid of flying. I had never traveled to a country that far before. I was going alone. I did not speak the language. I didn't even really know like who I was going to be meeting when I was over there or like I was just totally outside my comfort zone. There were so many things that are unknown, and for me, like I get a lot of anxiety when I feel like I'm not in control.
Mhm.
And I did not feel in control for so long there. And I mean, it started right as well, definitely before I even like got to the airport, right? Um, but when I got off the plane, I just, for the first time in my life, being a white woman, right? I was a minority.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the culture shock was wild, and I had to navigate from the airport to my hotel by myself, and it was just wild. And throughout the whole experience, like the field team I was working on when I was doing the research out there, the leader was, uh, why can't I think of this word right now? What do you call it? Like when a guy hates women?
Misogynist.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was like, I know it's an M, but I don't know why I blanked on that word. Yeah, and he would just like tell me all the time, like, you can't do that, or you weren't able to do that because you're a woman and women just aren't as good at doing that. You're not strong enough. So it was just really weird. And then I don't even know where I'm going with this China story, but I had so many risks that I took. I was so uncomfortable. I felt so weird. And at the same time, it's like the best experience I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh wow.
And I want to go back so bad. I learned so much while I was there through all the uncomfortableness, I guess you could say. And it was just, it opened my eyes to so many things.
I guess when did you realize that that's when it started benefiting you? Was it, I mean, when did you realize that it was such a impactful experience? Was it like sometime during the time there, or was it like after you had left and reflected on it?
It's when I came back.
Okay. So I mean, like this was obviously like an experience that was so overwhelmingly like emotional on top of just being very eye-opening in so many ways for you. And I mean like that, I mean just like that depth of emotion, I think that when we experience something like that, it means that it's like something so meaningful for us, something that like hits in a deeper place where it's like this is something that like I need to pay attention to. This is something that like I want to pay attention to. This is something that's like I think it's part of that experience of, you know, living and connecting with other people and having these different experiences that we spoke about before, like these different observations, realizing that things are very different in the world, and how do we start mediating that gap, and how do we even begin to start realizing those differences if we're not taking those risks and moving outside of our comfort zones and recognizing the very things that are causing so many detriments in our lives and so many like differentiations in how we live and move. And I guess like with that being such an impactful experience, such an emotional experience where, you know, you stated that there are things you wish you hadn't seen. If you had the chance, would you do that all over again?
Definitely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I want to go back so bad because because of how uncomfortable I was. You know, I hated it, but at the same time, like, there was something so great about it. And I think that's what I love about traveling. And field research is just, I'm forced to go outside of my comfort zone. I'm forced to do things that I'm afraid of. I'm forced to do things that might freak me out. Like before I went to China, birds scared the bejesus out of me. I didn't want to touch it, but finally, and I was going there to do, I was going to curse, but
Yeah, you can.
I
You
was
can
going
say.
there to do goddamn bird research, and I didn't know anything about birds. I'd never touched a bird, and finally I touched a bird. I entangled it. I was so proud of myself, but birds are still scary. But I'm better, you know? So, yeah, I definitely would go back. I miss it all the time.
So what would you say, like, I guess if you could kind of point out some things that were gained out of that experience, like whether personally or just within your life and or even things that were lost that you may have like lost due to that experience. And loss doesn't also have to be a bad thing. It can be like a loss of different ideas within yourself or something.
I don't think I lost anything from it. I think I only gained
Oh,
personal growth. It definitely helped me understand myself better and others better. It helped me, I don't know, just almost in a countless number of ways
hmm.
from everything. And that was 4 years ago, 5 years ago now.
Wow.
I don't know, but it still sticks with me to this day, and I still reflect on it, and I'm still learning from my experience because I think about, you know, because I did say I was immature when I was going through it, and I was, and I'm thinking how I could have handled things differently, and that just allows me to be better prepared for the future if I ever come across that situation again.
Hmm.
I can just be better.
I think that's all we can do, is reflect on our past experiences, what we've gained from them, how it's brought us to where we are today, and how we're going to use that to move forward and how we're going to use that to continue to live our lives in the most meaningful way from what we've learned. And I guess with that, I mean, that idea of be the change you want to see and, kind of moving forward in this experience that was so meaningful for you as you continue to move through your life, and I think you may have like mentioned this, is taking risks part of that? Do you see that as being like something that you're more than willing and able to embark on when the opportunity presents itself?
Yes, of course, there's always some initial hesitation, but I do like to take risks and I try to. Not like, adrenaline junkie risks, like
Hmm.
I'm not about to go bungee jumping off a bridge or a cliff or some shit like that, but, within my life.
Yeah, and I think like the hardest part of that question is really that idea of, we don't know what all these risks entail in our life. We don't know what that next step may be. And I think that that's part of like the scary part, that uncertainty where it's like we can be in a very comfortable situation. We can be in a situation that we kind of feel that we're okay, but then an opportunity presents itself that may seem, it's like, wow, I can potentially get something more that I wanted, but I could lose everything that I have now. And with that on the balance, do you think that like that is a risk that you'd be willing to take, where it's like I'm going to sacrifice the comfort that I have right now and the knowing of things that I have right now for this potential to possibly get what I get, but also, possibly lose everything that I have?
Well, I guess that depends on the risk, right? Because I
Yeah.
know some people that just did exactly that. They just like everything they had known to be comfortable, everything they had, they sold it, they packed their lives into like a camper, and road tripped all the way down to Belize, and they just started a life there quite spontaneously,
Wow.
and have been living there ever since.
And have you spoken to
And
them
I
since?
just, I'm like still Facebook friends with both of them, but they're an older couple.
Okay.
They worked on the farm I was staying at when I was in Belize and in the mountain pine ridge. I don't know. I just kind of always admired them for that because would I ever be able to do that? Like it just either alone or with a partner, just be like, hey, let's just change our lives completely and do it, you
Mhm.
know? Like, would I have that kind of bravery? I don't know, but I'd like to think that I would,
You know, I
because
sorry.
why not? YOLO, as Drake would say.
Yeah.
Got to put in a pop culture reference for the kids, you know?
All the kids out there. Hey, you kids, stay in school. Oh, never mind.
Try to keep this podcast hip for you, Carlton.
I do appreciate that. And I
You're welcome.
and thanks so much for, I mean, talking with me today and sharing your experiences.
Of
Um,
course.
I don't know. I think it's very good hearing your perspective of taking risks and what that means for you. And a lot of things overlap with my idea of taking risks. And there were a lot of things that were also very new to me because they were your experiences, but also very great things to keep in mind as we think about this idea of taking risks and what that means for people. And I think the best part of getting the different ideas and different perspectives of different people on this topic is that everyone is taking risks in some kind of way, whether it's taking the risk of asking someone out that you really like, or taking the risk of, starting a new job, or moving to a completely different place. It's like we all take these risks, and I think as we understand more of the differences and the dynamics that come into taking risks for different people, we can be more sympathetic and we can see someone coming to us for help and say like, wow, it could be very difficult for this person to ask for help, and they're taking a risk by even extending
Yeah.
that in that way. And
Exactly, because then you have your own experiences. You're like, wow, I remember when I had to ask for help in a situation and I was so scared, but I was really grateful when someone helped me. Like, you want to be that person for someone else.
mhm. And yeah, and I think that's really all contingent upon us like being in that experience, being in that place of not really knowing what's going on, or being outside of our comfort zone in that way, and having to really experience that, because it's the closest thing we can do to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, and in terms of, I was there at some point, or I've had a similar experience at some point. So yeah, I think this was an amazing conversation, and again, thank you so much for. So that was my interview with Sheldon. I hope y'all enjoyed. Sheldon is really one of my best friends, and I'm so happy that she was able to join me on the show and just really share our ideas and thoughts. And this idea of taking risks, it's something that is so, it is something that is contingent upon each and every one of our experiences, and what we go through, and what we interpret from that, and how we use that to move forward, and how we use that to continue to grow and continue to take more risks in our lives to learn more about ourselves. And like I mentioned in the end of the last episode, how this idea of comfort zones is something that seems to be pervasive in this idea of taking risks, where, I guess inherently taking a risk means moving outside of your comfort zone in that way, and and that being somewhat of a requirement in this process of growth, and this process of understanding yourself, and in the process of, being in the place that you want to be. You have to take risks, and it's something that's so personal to all of us, where, it is a place of exposure, because when we take a risk, we're moving outside of that comfort zone, so we're exposing ourselves to everything. And even as we speak about that, I'm so thankful for the those that have spoken about and opened up their thoughts and ideas about taking risk, and allowed me to, put this up here. Rebecca and Sheldon, I'm so thankful, because, like, that experience is something that can be so, personal, and I think it's something that's personal to all of us as we take those risks, and as we kind of move forward with these different opportunities that we have, that change us so radically that, we can't help but have it be part of us. We can't help but, have it be something that moves us so in so many different domains. And I think that that's something that we have to kind of take hold of as we think about this idea of taking risks, and as we continue to try to take risks within our lives to be exactly where we want to be in life, and how scary that can be, but also the experience that can come from it, and the growth that can come from it, and ultimately the outcome that can come from it. And, and at the end of the day, take that risk weigh the pros and cons, like Rebecca said, in the last episode, weigh the pros and cons of those decisions, and go for it. And like Sheldon said in this episode, like, where would we be without, like, taking those risks? It's like each and every opportunity, each and every step that we take is taking a risk. And I posted on my Instagram post, doing nothing is taking a risk, because, what happens if you don't take that risk, if you don't do anything, like that is a risk in itself, because then you're never going to know what you're missing out on. And then you're going to just like sit and wonder like what could have been, and that in itself is taking that risk, because time isn't going to slow down for you. It's moving on, and it's constantly happening. So it's like, do with it what you will, and take those risks. If they mean your happiness, if they mean achieving something that you are truly and ultimately wanting to pursue in life, go for it. Take that risk, take that leap, and value what you gain from the experience, whether it's absolute success, which obviously what we all hope for. But what if it's failure? Then like, learn from that experience, and don't let it keep you on the ground. Like, learn from it, and let it teach you something. So when you take that next risk, when you take that next opportunity, when you go for it that next time, that you will know, you'll be wiser, you'll know, you'll be more experienced. And that's what it's all about. That's what taking these risks are all about. It's getting to where we want to go, and realizing that we had the potential within us the entire time to get there, but we just have to take those risks. We have to take that leap. This was the conclusion of taking risks, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. If you have any ideas or thoughts, or even, just what your idea of taking risks, you can send that to me, everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send in topic ideas to the same email address. You can join the Instagram page at everything.sunpodcast. You can join the Twitter page at everysunpodcast, or you can join the Facebook group at Everything Under the Sun with Ty. And yeah, rate, review, subscribe. Hope you all enjoyed. The next topic is going to be on traveling. It's going to be one of my personal favorites. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but hopefully something interesting and captivating for you all. So love you all, and I will see you next time.